Namaskar friends. Today is the first day of the second phase of the orations of the Lifeline Oration program. This second phase will contain subjects that will be opposite to that told in the first phase. In the first phase, the theme was Death Confronts Life, or man's love of life versus fear of death. In this page, you will hear what are the things that a man considers above life and death, in doing which or in pursuing which man ignores his life or his prospects in life or in apprehension of death. Now, why this context? You will naturally be eager to know why this change of a context. The change is due to this fact that this question: has man come from the primitive condition to the modern state simply by loving life and fearing death? Answer is no. Then, what are the qualities man developed in him, consciously or unconsciously? Those qualities evolved in him that matched with the changes which ultimately boil down to be called modernity. Two things I have told you, friends. First is characteristics of the modern age. Second is qualities that a man evolved in him, or qualities that evolved in him, man being aware or not, that matched with the requirements of modernity. Friends, in the primitive condition, man lived simply as a higher animal. What is the essence of animal life? Food, sleep, and procreation, bringing up children. Man was doing that. But there came, or there evolved in man, such of qualities that lifted him from this primitive condition to modernity. What are those qualities? Now, friends, taking the characteristics of modern age, I have fixed 6 subheads under this page, second page. Each page matches with the essential attribute of modernity. So, while speaking on each subhead, I will tell the relevant characteristic of the modern age and give my orations under that heading. Today, I have selected the first quality, first attribute of the modern age, that is, focus on man as a human being, dignity and freedom of man, man at the center of human affairs, man not to be prevailed upon, influenced by any outside force except his own mind and his will. Then what is that quality in man, basic quality in man, which sustains this attitude, attribute? It is his sentiment, sometimes called sense of self-respect. There is a little difference between these, friends. Sense of self-respect and self-prestige, we almost all have in us. We sometimes, some of us display and some of us keep it reserved. Because in this sense of self-regard, self-respect, self-prestige, there is an element of ego. But in a sentiment proper, there is absolutely no ego. It is a pure sentiment. What is the sentiment? The sentiment is just an emotion. But an emotion involving ownness, mindness. It is mine. It is my own. It is my own exclusively my own. Nobody can interfere here. It is my zone, my area. This sense is the sentiment. So that whenever you feel someone is hurting your sentiment, you feel like reacting. This sense of self-prestige is in our conscious mind. But this sentiment is a part of our subconscious mind that our mind comes to deal with is a part of the conscious. The conscious mind does not come to deal with sentiment unless sentiment is wounded, sentiment is hot. When the sentiment is hot, it comes up from the subconscious mind asking the conscious mind to deal with it, to deal with the person who has wounded it. This is the thing. The sentiment is of three types. Individual sentiment. Firstly, a man's ownness to himself, self-awareness, self-prestige to himself. Secondly, his sentiment for those closely around him, especially linked by blood with him. Sentiment for a father, sentiment for a brother, like this. Next, sentiment for the institution they serve, the profession of which they are a part, like this. Life's course of living, source of living, they become part of a sentiment. About the latter two, from people and from the institutions, he expects reciprocity. If I have sentiment for someone, my brother should have equal respect for me. I don't need that my brother should cut off himself from others and only love me. Let him have a sentiment for others. But since I have sentiment for my brother should have sentiment for me. I am serving a certain organization. I expect that the organization should also consider me to be a part of it, because I consider myself to be a part of the organization. I am sentimentally attached to my organization. What about the first? I am my own. That is exclusiveness. This I am my own, the first category of sentiment, has three subdivisions. Firstly, I am my own. No interference, no encroachment, nothing. Secondly, there are certain shortcomings, certain handicap, certain want, which are part of my sentiment, because they are exclusive to me. Suppose I am suffering, long suffering. It must have been the result of certain wrongs I have done. The wrongs are mine, so the consequences are mine. Nobody you allowed to reflect upon your consequences. This fellow, by this habit, is suffering like this. Nobody you allowed to talk to you like this, because sufferings are your own. And the next is your sentiment to be free, freedom. Your freedom is the sentiment also. I am talking of individual personal sentiment number one. You do not want that in your thinking, your taking decision, your manner of working, anybody else should interfere, prevail upon you. None. I would focus on the first attribute of this sentiment. First attribute of the first sentiment. Before that, let me compare with like qualities. It is not seen in everyone. Everybody is not sentimental in this sense I am telling. Because it needs formation in a certain particular situation, how a person is brought up, who the persons are to bring him up, what is the condition, what is the environment, what is the situation, how he has come to deal with different persons around him. There are so many things. But there, in the background, there must be some suffering, some handicap, some want, some vulnerability, some secrecy. But those shortcomings want a human being is hopeful that he will make good in his life. Since he is hopeful of making good the shortfall in life, he will not allow others to give opinion, give suggestion to him. This is sentiment. But there are also handicap, certain deformity, certain want a person feels he cannot make good in life. That brings inferiority complex in him. What is called psychology? Inferiority complex. He is never confident that he can improve the situation. These situations are like that. That brings inferiority complex. Another difference, let me say, though sentiment is an emotion, all emotions are not sentiments. The nature of oneness, ownness, mindness should be there. Your pet feels emotion for you, but you feel sentiment for your pet. It is exclusively your own. There are people who say they will exclusively feed their pets. Nobody should feed them. In the emotion of sentiment, there is a sort of a commitment, sense of a belongingness. This is sense of a belongingness, this sense of a commitment is the beginning of moral sentiment in man. This moral sentiment we will hear sometime later. Now coming to the first item of the first sentiment. Man is exclusive to his own. You will find, friends, such people, they face many ordeals in outside world, many problems. Some problems being sorrow, they are sad. But after some time, they forget their sadness. Why? There inside them, because of this sentiment, this structure, they feel joy. I told you, sufferings also become a source of joy to them. As if there is some chamber in which there is all glow of music, all tone, and they become absorbed in it. To this singleness of man's source of joy, the great Ghazal emperor, Mr. Ghulam Ali sings, अपनी धुन में रहता हूँ, अपनी धुन में रहता हूँ. I dwell delighted in my own tunes. The great man of literature in England, R.L. Stevenson, writes in his essay, The Lantern Bearers, justice is not done to the versatile and childish nature of man's imagination. Outwardly, a man's life may look like a rude mound of mud, but inwardly, in the secret chamber of his heart, there is some golden chamber where he dwells delighted. This is man's secret corner. But friends, the walls of this secret chamber in which man dwells delighted as a child are very thin, like cobwebs of a spider, gossamer, liable to be broken with a slight pressure from outside. Just as a bumblebee is trapped in the spider's cobweb, gets entangled in it, but a spider cannot eat it. Similarly, there are pressures. These pressures are self-born, but they are pressures appearing to come from outside. They pierce the wall of this chamber and gets entangled, and entangle man also. And we call it love and friendship. Friends, with a small illustration example, I will close this oration. A friend of mine once telling me about 35 years ago, he came to survey big government organization. He marked that the orderly attached to him, feeling very close to him, as if he is a part of him. It was very interesting for him to watch the orderly feel so near to him. After 2 to 3 months of joining, the orderly brought his son, a 7, 8 year boy, to him. The boy came and wished him by bending his waist. And my friend asked him, "What is your name? What are you reading? What have you taken in the morning?" After some questions, after 4 or 5 minutes, he took out a 10 rupees note and handed over to the boy. As for present value, it will be 100 rupees. The boy did not take the amount. He simply looked at him. He persisted. He said, "Why don't you take it?" The boy was simply standing still. Nothing, no change in him. His father said to him, "Take it. Sir is giving out of love." No, the boy did not move an inch. Then my friend took back the note into his own pocket and was telling me, I told him, "You realize the sentiment of the boy. Had you forced the note into his pocket, he would have reacted terribly inside, thinking very bad of his father." Now, friends, do you mark? It's a small boy, 7 to 8, but he has formed his whole world in himself. Do you think he has not seen money and he has not felt want? Dresses are purchased for him, slate, pencil, books, periodicals are bought for him. No. Whatever he has, want or not, they are his. He will not allow anybody to think of it for him. With this illustration, I close this oration. Thank you, friends.